Hello, I'm Andy Mack, and welcome to Movie Shorts, the podcast that gives you sharp, spoiler-free reviews of the latest releases in under 10 minutes. If you're into remakes, reboots, dystopian nightmares, or just want an excuse to hide from the real world, you're in the right place. And if you haven't checked out my latest episodes, including Good Fortune, Tron Ares, or my Back to the Future special, they're all waiting for you on Spotify, Apple, Buzzsprout, and YouTube podcasts. Today we're talking about The Running Man, Edgar Wright's stylish, satirical take on the Stephen King classic. But is this remake sprinting ahead, or simply running on nostalgia fumes? Well, let's get straight to it. Edgar Wright drops us into a near-future America that's one part dystopia, one part media circus, and about 6 parts distressingly believable. Corporate networks have essentially become the government. Everyone's skint, healthcare's a luxury, and the only thing keeping society from collapsing is a constant stream of violent reality shows coming out of a channel called Freevee. Imagine if every TV network merged with Black Mirror and lost its moral compass. Glen Powell plays Ben Richards, a blue-collar worker who's been blacklisted and pushed right to the edge. He's living in a cramped slum apartment with his wife Sheila, who works at a seedy club to keep them afloat, and their baby daughter Kathy, who's seriously ill with a flu they can't afford to treat. With no options left, Ben tries auditioning for one of Freevee's many exploitative game shows. His mix of simmering anger, physical toughness, and "I've absolutely had enough of this" energy catches the eye of the producers. Before he knows it, he's been selected for The Running Man, the network's biggest, bloodiest phenomenon. The rules are simple. Survive for 30 days while the entire country hunts you down. Civilians are encouraged to snitch, ambush, or flat-out murder contestants for cash prizes, and a team of elite hunters, led by the cold, calculating Evan McCone, are always closing in. The network's executive puppet master, Dan Killian, gives Ben a tempting offer: money for his daughter's medicine and protection for his family, if he agrees to play. Back into a corner, Ben signs on. When the show launches, Ben and 2 other contestants, Jenny Lachlan and Tim Yansky, are thrown into the world with a small wad of cash, a 12-hour head start, and the delightful knowledge that anyone they meet might try to kill them for prize. Meanwhile, the show's swarmy host, Bobby Thompson, turns public opinion against them by airing doctored footage and painting the runners as violent criminals. Even Ben's wife and daughter aren't spared from being used as emotional ammunition. And we will stop there. Okay, let's set expectations early. If you're coming for a remake of the Arnie's 80s classic, you're in the wrong cinema. This isn't a camp action romp with lycra-clad hunters named Sub-Zero or Buzzsaw swinging chainsaws around a polystyrene set. There are no professional wrestlers in silver shoulder pads, no "Killian, I'll be back" moments. Instead, Edgar Wright hands Ben Richards the whole of America to run through, wearing an oversized orange wristband that looks like a rejected Apple Watch prototype. This is not the old Running Man, and that is the point. Wright uses this freedom to turn the story into something sharper, more cynical, and, dare I say it, more believable. The biggest shift is how he retools the world into a media-driven dystopia that feels uncomfortably close to the direction we're already heading in. Freevee, the mega network that practically runs the country, churns out a constant stream of trashy game shows designed to pacify the masses. It's satire, but only just. You'll watch it thinking, yeah, we're about 6 algorithm updates away from this. The Americanos, a spot-on Kardashian parody, are Wright's clearest jab at modern celebrity culture, a reminder that we often look to the least informed, least interested voices and treat them as social leaders. They pop up throughout the film, smiling, shimmering, and spouting their scripted empathy, and it's hilarious and depressing in equal measure. Their job is to distract the nation while the real machinery of control grinds on behind the curtain. Wright clearly wants to show how a powerful minority can manipulate an exhausted majority, and he does so without grinding the story to a halt. The rich aren't just indifferent to the working class, they're actively coached out of caring, drip-fed narratives that tell them sympathy is a weakness or an inconvenience. Information here is currency, weaponized and packaged for entertainment, and the wider population consumes it without ever realizing they're being managed. Visually, the film has a strong line back to Paul Verhoeven. RoboCop, Total Recall, Starship Troopers. That mix of hyper-coloured satire, slick corporate branding, and slightly unreal-looking cityscapes is deliberate. Nothing in this world feels quite natural, and that's by design. Wright creates a society that looks like it exists, half in reality, half in advertising, polished, curated, fake. There's a fascinating tension between the gritty desperation of the characters and the glossy, hollow sheen of the world around them. The humour also plays a big part in keeping the tone balanced. Sometimes it's quick, Edgar Wright energy, fast edits, visual gaps, blink and you miss it moments. Other times it's more awkward and offbeat, especially when Michael Cera's character Elton is on screen. I spent half the film wondering whether he was playing it straight or parodying himself. And honestly, I still don't know. But it works. His strangeness adds to that feeling that the whole world is slightly off kilter, like you're watching a society that's collectively lost its grip on what's normal. At moments, the film edges back into political satire, especially when it shows how entertainment, fear, and outrage can steer public opinion. Social media doesn't technically exist here, at least we don't see it, but its spirit is everywhere. The instant judgments, the groupthink, the desperate need to belong to the winning narrative. The audience in the Running Man arena behaves like a live comment section, loud, reactive, easily steered by whatever the host tells them. So let's talk performances. Glen Powell takes on his first real leading role here, and you can see why he asked Tom Cruise for advice. He's got the intensity, the vulnerability, and a slightly frazzled energy that makes Ben Richards easy to root for. He even gets a few standout lines, the kind I absolutely can't repeat on a friendly podcast like this. And yes, a small part of me wonder whether Cruise himself might have been tempted. If there's one thing that man loves, it's running. Josh Brolin leans into his role as the sleazy, calculating producer with that deep, gravelly menace he does so well. At this point, he could read out the weather forecast and I'd still brace for an apocalypse. Emilia Jones arrives late in the film and nails the role of someone who isn't sure she should care and definitely doesn't want to. Her upper-class detachment adds a fascinating dynamic to the chaos around her. I really like this film. Part of it reflects the world we're living in today, the 1984 Big Brother nightmare crossed with the TikTok, X, Facebook, reality TV, fast food world we all scroll through daily. Honestly, I think Stephen King would be far happier with this version than the 1980s one. As someone who grew up in the late 80s and 1990s, this film made me think about how much the world has changed, or maybe how little it has. Technology has moved on, entertainment has evolved, but the big questions underneath it all haven't gone anywhere. My only gripe with this film is actually the ending. Not quite sure they knew how to finish it all off. Despite that, though, I did still enjoy the spectacle. The Running Man, stylish, sharp, and relevant. Thank you so much for listening to Movie Shorts, and a huge thank you to everyone following and tuning in from around the world. It honestly means a lot. I'd love to hear what you think of the podcast and what you made of today's film, so feel free to comment, send a message, or join the conversation. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Movie Shorts Andy Mac, and join the discussion on Reddit at Movie Shorts Podcast. You'll also find every episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, and YouTube podcasts. If you enjoy the show, a follow or a quick comment really helps the podcast grow. Until next time, goodbye.